Crypto God here, and today I got a special kind of guest for you. I got a kind of guest you've yet to hear on the podcast. That's right. I got a freedom advocate, a security, type of investigator, type of folk. He's the type of guy you really want on your team because he does his homework. We got Nathan Hauk in the house. How you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing, God?
Oh, well, last person calling me that was my ex-girlfriend, but I'm doing good.
All right, excellent.
It's been a minute. So, man, you do this whole thing where, you're a big advocate for the security of currencies and people doing their homework and, making sure people don't kind of fall into fraud or fall to predators.
Yeah. So, I've been organizing over at various sub-conferences in Defcon for several years, and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were very, very close to my heart, and I wanted to make sure that they stayed strongly secured.
Defcon. Now, for people who don't know what Defcon is, this is some serious shit, okay? Defcon is basically the hackers' hub of conferences.
Yeah. This is where security researchers and hackers come from all around the world to share their research and collect their accolades. They do everything there from block picking to social engineering, packet sniffing, threat hunting, just all types of amazingly cool stuff.
That's pretty nifty. That's pretty nifty.
Yeah, it's huge, and it just keeps growing. I mean, naturally, last year it was virtual, and this year it's scaled down. But it typically spans about 5 casinos in Vegas, probably about 40,000 people or so.
Wow. That's a lot of people that could dox your bull.
Yes, it is. And
I'm sorry. It's just I had the idea. I was like, man, these people could dox my bull if they wanted to. God damn. Not just my face.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
For the people at home in this comedic capacity, because people are pretty used to comedy, Nathan, on my show to an extent. Nathan's going to play the straight man in the comedic dynamic. So my personal mission outside of getting you guys educated today is I want to make them laugh. So
I got some DEF CON anecdotes for you, because you have to consider you get 40,000 of these mischievous and highly talented individuals in one city, a city with nothing but screens, and it's hyper electronically connected.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can just figure it out, man.
No.
You're looking for a connecting flight at the airport, and there's just on the screen. It's just mayhem.
I love it. That sounds like my kind of party.
Yeah, it's definitely wild. Sweet parties is super high end. There's nothing like it. I tell people it doesn't matter what your level of technicality is. Go there. It's an absolute phenomenon, spectacle. Just get out to Vegas one year and you gotta see it.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I love it. And you know what? Their website for Defcon reminds me of a blog in the early 2000s. So this is nifty. It's nostalgic, brother.
Yeah, this is the 29th Defcon, it's so almost 3 decades ago. What I'm currently doing crazy. Over there is I'm currently working in the sub-conference for blockchain security. And so the idea is I'm trying to create this bridge between the information security community and the crypto and blockchain people. And which is very difficult because, I'm trying to say, hey, security consultancies, take us seriously. And then I look behind me and it's just a bunch of people in unicorn onesies saying, have fun staying poor. I'm just like, wow, we're just a hateable group. We're just noxious. So I got my work cut out for me.
The unicorn onesies don't really help their credibility when they insult you, though.
No, it's definitely very rough. Everybody's screaming about Lambos. It's very, very hard to advocate for these people.
Oh man. Well, it's they do scream about Lambos, don't they?
Incessantly. That's all they do. Yes, it's horrible.
I want to just point out the language of the crypto space for a second, right? They're like, when do we go to the moon? When's our Lambo? It sounds like the crazy guy you would meet on the street.
It's heinous. Yeah, it's terrible. And I understand the sentiment with some people saying have fun staying poor, because it's picking on fiat currency, but at the same time it just comes off as this awful, terribly arrogant thing.
Oh yeah. It's a I understand wholeheartedly what you're talking about, because it's like, if you're ever in any of these crypto like servers and spaces, oh my gosh, man, like they off the charts.
Yeah. I don't do any of the chart stuff at all. It whatever, and it's fine for other people, but not for me. No, thank you.
Right. You're focused on like the security of a thing.
My first thing when somebody starts talking to me about a project is I go, how does it expand freedom? So if it's not expanding freedom, I want nothing to do with it. So I'm very interested in the entire freedom aspect of it, and then how I can make sure any project that's expanding freedom can be deployed securely and safely, so it has its best shot at expanding freedom.
So this concept of the freedom expansion, right? What does that mean for you?
Well, I mean, so if we're going to go and say that the code is the law, that means that we obey no other law, and Bitcoin is code, and the other things are too. So it's going. You have to consider that every time somebody buys Bitcoin, they're not really buying Bitcoin. They're throwing their money away for something better. They're taking their dollars and they're going, "Hey, this is trash. I want the better thing."
Right.
Now, this was originally identified by like Austrian economic people and like libertarian-minded anarcho-capitalists, people like that. Now, you had curious technologists and gamers that were also involved, but for the most part, it was people that were getting into the space over ideals rather than when moon Lambo.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm one of those old curmudgeons, and I'm staying my course.
So basically, right, I'm going to try to throw out a couple of things that might like resonate with you, right? If, say, for instance, you see like one of these new currencies come out and they're trying to like legitimately like improve the world, like improve third world nations through donating directly to those nations in ways that are verifiable and that make an impact. That could be seeing a way of impacting freedom for some of these people, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look what El Salvador did recently.
Right.
That's never going to happen in a pretty or a nice country. It has to come from a very unsavory country that's in, economic purgatory because of the IMF or because they're devoted to the dollar.
Right. I found out last night, by the way, and it broke my fucking heart, that the average wage in Venezuela for a month is $5.
Yeah, well, hyperinflation. And
$5 a month. $60 a year.
But standard of living. So that, yeah, it's highly impoverished, but it's standard of living. Also, you have to consider that things are much less expensive down there. And it's the hyperinflation. But bringing up Venezuela is cool because, so El Salvador just legitimized Bitcoin. Well, submitted to it. They submitted to Bitcoin, which was a very smart move in my opinion. But you've always had these countries that with their economic turmoil would go, okay, well, let's just, the people choose a cryptocurrency and that's what we use. Like Smart Cash is huge in Brazil. Venezuela, Dash was humongous. And you've seen this in many instances in these different regions across the globe. But this is the first time that a country goes like, no, we got to get off this entirely. And they did. I got a buddy who just immediately moved the production of his Bitcoin ATMs down to El Salvador, creating a ton of jobs. This is more than just the price of the Bitcoin. He just gave about 175 people jobs. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at the state of the world and what they're doing. Like, you probably, without a doubt, know what Germany just recently did about they passed a law pretty much, and it takes effect on Thursday, right? Where it's called the Germany's Fund Location Act, right? And they're talking about investing as much as 20% of their portfolios into crypto, which means upwards towards, $415 billion.
Yeah, call it what it is. They're submitting. They're going. The money that we create policy for is such trash that we'll throw our own money that we created away for your decentralized internet money. And some people that don't think it through go, hey, well, Bitcoin's making ransomware happen. And it's like, no, it's not. Ransoms existed forever. And just like these countries and just like anybody else, if you can leverage that you can get something from somebody, you want to get the best thing that you can from them. And Bitcoin just happens to be better than dollars. Bitcoin just happens to be better than a lot of currencies. So that's what they're asking for. Why wouldn't they? It makes perfect sense.
And like, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about Germany doing this thing, right? Because all the people I've talked to in the crypto space thus far, I'm the only person that's been talking about it.
I hadn't heard about it until right now.
Yeah. And well, it's really interesting because the way, the algorithm, right? The algorithm, you have to, because I'm sure there's lots of talks in your space about how the algorithm is excessively invasive. I'm glad for my algorithm because it has identified that I am looking towards financial law across the world for things specifically like this.
Well, I mean, they don't want to deal with financial law. That's why they're abandoning it for something that is stateless, that is borderless. You can't threaten a Bitcoin. You can't yell at Bitcoin and say we're going to regulate you. If any of these arrogant politicians that want to change it want to support or want to submit like a Bitcoin improvement proposal, they can do so. It's going to get rejected. It's going to get absolutely rejected and laughed out of this space. But that's the way it is. You can't write laws about it. So if you do write a law about it, it has nothing to do with Bitcoin, and you're just threatening your citizenry.
Right. Now here's another question. Me and Laura kind of talked on it when we talked. The whole Binance thing. What's your take?
I typically don't like talking about any specific project, but Binance. Well,
it's a big issue in the world right now. That a lot of people aren't educated on. They don't even know. A lot of people don't even know about the investigation. And if they know about it, I'm curious about the implications for the smart chain, the BSC, more than I am about Binance itself.
Well, BSC, I mean, those things have been getting popped left and right. Anything coming out on the BSC, I look at as immediately suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Every time there's a bull run, every single time, there's this crazy market fervor and this mass hysteria where everybody tries to rush stuff to market or look for trends and just jump on these bandwagons. And every single time it results in horrible failures. And it's heartbreaking to see happen again and again and again. And the only way to succeed in this space is 80% of it is just resisting temptation, in my opinion.
Right. Integrity.
Yes.
Just have integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. I mean, because there are legitimate projects that go out on the BSC. Like the chance that 100% of the BSC being bad, that's some people put stuff out there because it's what they know, right?
Well, so this is another pet peeve of mine is the way that everybody goes on these witch hunt over these scammers. A scam is something that is intentionally done to cause some type of financial harm, right? Mm-hmm. But nobody ever wants to say like, oh, well, these guys just didn't know how to code. Nobody will ever say, well, they're just stupid and they came up with a really, really bad idea. Nobody ever says that stuff. Everything is point the finger and scream.
Yeah. I have a statement that I say on my other channels. Well, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made.
Right.
Mistakes were made. And that's the thing, too. Like, just because a project is having a rough moment doesn't mean they were a rug pull. Now, there's definite rug pulls out there, definite scams out there. We've seen it more than enough to where, like there was a coin, the first interview I ever did, Nathan, it was this really good, nice guy named Chris, right? He paid for some advertising with some of my other stuff that I do out of his own pocket. And one of the people on his team had written a backdoor into the code and stole all the liquidity out from underneath his nose. And he paid me directly from his account to mine, right? And he believed in the project so wholeheartedly. What breaks my heart is a whole team can get painted for the action of one person.
No, it's the action of all of them. Why didn't they have a working relationship with a security consultancy doing periodic assessments that would have caught this backdoor? They were highly irresponsible.
Right. And highly inexperienced too. Because this guy, he wasn't a coder. He was an ideas guy. He was he was a anesthesiologist is what he was. And like you're right. There is a negligence that takes place.
Right. And so defer to an authority. You got to be careful. And that's what you do. And one of the things is, if you're going to have these decentralized things, a lot of these people never even meet in person or anything like that. another thing that a professional service like a security consultancy or even dealing with a lawyer to get an SEC letter or something like that is it makes people have to expose themselves to a degree. And if it's not a privacy product, if it's not a privacy project, then you kind of want that.
Right.
So yeah, it's that's happened on many occasions. And then so you said the guy's an anesthesiologist. I'm assuming that this project probably had to do something with bettering medical situations.
It was a meme coin. He just it was
good.
It was one of those things. Thankfully, all the charity tokens I've had on thus far, you know, like one of them didn't perform as well as they were hoping, but they're still fighting. Same thing with this other one, and they're looking to do more in the future. You know what I mean? With other projects and stuff. Like the development team really liked me, you know, and they kind of just stay in touch, you know, and it's a really interesting thing when you get into the space. You start forming relationships with these people, and then they're like, well, I want a guy that's good at talking, so I'm going to reach back out to the guy that I know, you know, because of it's that familiarity aspect that that they really like, you know what I mean? And it's just this, I agree with you, man. There needs to be more level of scrutiny on teams' parts, because I think there's been enough people screwed over at this point, even the last couple months, right? That it should really start bringing a focus back onto security. Like it really should.
No, there shouldn't be a focus on security. Security is a fundamental building block of cryptocurrency and blockchain. It's an absolute fundamental. It's that and freedom. What's the point of decentralization? It's to dissolve power out elsewhere, right? So to expand freedom. So Bitcoin isn't a technology. Bitcoin's an exploit. Satoshi kept every image you see to show Satoshi. It's just a recycled image from the 90s about a hacker, right? You can look at what happened to Bernard von Nothaus and the Liberty Dollar and what the feds did to him and confiscated all of the precious metals and everything shortly before Bitcoin. Of course, Satoshi stayed anonymous. But on top of that, what he did was he distributed culpability across so many jurisdictions across the globe that coming down on this would be unenforceable. It was completely and totally unenforceable. But if you look at alternative currencies in the past, that's not the way they're dealt with. They're met with great violence and threats and jail time. There have been instances during times of war and economic strife where competing currencies like Baltimore bucks, Ithaca hours, and stuff like that have been allowed to exist. But for the most part, no.
Right. I mean, it's really interesting, man. Like, I feel that, yeah, you're 100% right. It should be a foundation. The reason why it should become reason why I say it should be a focus is primarily due to the fact of the lack of it with these new teams that are coming out.
Right. So I was supposed to do a talk at Bitcoin 2021 a few weeks ago in Miami. And for weeks, I was trying to figure out how I could do the talk without just yelling at everybody.
Well, sometimes that's what people need.
Right. So anyway, the MC is a comedian and he's my friend. And I told him, I was like, look, I'm going to shorten my talk and I'm going to yield my time back to you because I'm going to abuse the audience. And I want you to get them back into a good mood so the person coming on after me doesn't have to deal with the aftermath of my yelling at everybody. And then so it's probably about 20 minutes before my talk and I'm looking at the audience and they're happy and everything. And I'm just like, I can't do this to them. So I went and I found some guys that were going to talk about NFT and gaming. Some guys I know from somewhere else. So I was like, dude, just take my slot. And I just gave my talk away. But the only way that I can, I'm dead serious. And so the only way that I can kind of talk about this stuff and not insult everybody is in one-on-one conversations like this.
Right. And I get what you're saying. I have been brought on to consult on different projects from a marketing perspective, not organization. You know what I mean? Marketing and organization. Because for my content creation, I have a network of about 50 people and I manage that many people very effectively to do what I do. And with the whole thing with that you see, these are a couple big things that I see a problem. One is the lack of security. That's probably the biggest thing I see across every project that I come into contact with. And then a overwhelming lack of organization. And so I got into a situation that I put myself in because I'm consulting on this project and up to this point, I've been working with them for about a month, and I'm getting about to the end point of my consultation with them, right? Of my, just being on to the side. They brought me on for my eyes and my ideas and stuff like that. And it came on to like, it was the last 3 days of my contract on this project. And I just went off on all of them. I started yelling at them, man. I said, you guys are geniuses at what you do, but you're fucking idiots at what I do, and you're not listening. And I went off for about a good 20 minutes. And from the result of that is they started doing things different, right? So sometimes we need to yell at people, Nathan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think about this all the time, and I have some very, very smart friends, and we've been discussing ways to solve these problems, and we've worked something out that's pretty cool. We're hoping to have it ready to announce by Defcon in early August.
Well, hey, if you need a voice to put together a video, I got you.
Let's see what happens with this. But one of the things
do a cool little promo video to talk it over.
Wow, you just have echo effect just right there, just like that?
Well, I have multiple things on standby, Nathan. You can't just expect me to do my job and not have things ready.
You got a whole toolbox.
Yeah, I do. I mean, when I tell people I do this professionally and I prefer to use this setup for it, there's a reason, because I do entertainment, Nathan.
Okay, all right, man.
You know what I mean? It's reverb. What it is, it's a reverb setup through a soundboard that I have that's set to hotkeys. So,
Pretty much. I have certain settings I can go into.
And just like you have a toolkit for what you do,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think when we're talking about looking at, like, say, let's use me as an example, right? I host a show, right? I should have all my tools on standby for every little situation that I do, right? Or at least examples. So I think the first line of defense against going into a working partnership with somebody that's incompetent is check their skill set and see what tools they have on standby, whether that be their network of people that they're connected to or their competency in their craft, almost like a portfolio of work in the past. Like asking some questions and seeing what they're about, I think is the first line of defense against a lot of this stuff, because you can talk to a person for 20 minutes on a call and tell whether or not they're about what they say they're about. If you're good with people. I mean, not everybody's good with people, Nathan. Not everybody has the capability to hear a person speak and tell if they're on bullshit.
Right. So I tend not even try to I immediately assume that the person I'm speaking with knows nothing, right? And it's not to be insulting, but it's just so that I can just go, listen, even if you think you know some of this stuff, it has to be laid out in like a proper order so that you can build on, and understand this entire thing as one little object that you can observe.
Right. That's because you almost have like an empirical scientist type mindset, very investigative, which is why you're good at what you do.
Well, so I believe that one of the biggest contributors to the security problem in cryptocurrency and blockchain is OPSEC. Everybody is hyper focused on OPSEC, and it gives them this Dunning-Kruger approach to the rest of security, where they go, well, I'm focused on this one aspect of security, so I now believe that I know a lot about security, and I know a lot about the entire spectrum of security. And it's like, going back to the toolbox analogy, no, you know a lot about one kind of screwdriver. You know nothing about threat hunting. You don't know about incident response. You have no idea what a red or a blue team is. And so it's very difficult. And one of the other contributors is it's because it is decentralized, right? So the miners don't hold anybody accountable. The devs don't hold anybody accountable. And the bag holders, who are pretty much shareholders, they don't hold anybody accountable. So there's no one in charge of due diligence. And a lot of the devs that I end up talking to have never, they came from a dev job at some company, and they've never had to deal with a security consultancy. So they come over to the decentralized space, and they're probably a pretty good coder, but they don't have that due diligence branch that is going to check all their stuff or write patches or whatever. So that's just completely out the window.
Now,
And then-
what's really interesting is you use the word OBSEC, right? This object, is it object security that you're referring to? Or is it
operational security?
Operational OBSEC. So
Mhm.
for people at home, okay, because I have a lot of, they don't have your background people,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Do you want to break that down for the
Sure.
people at home? Because I think that will be, because like I have one listener to where if I don't ask questions that she's going to ask, she's going to text me later and ask me. So I would appreciate a little bit of a definition.
Yeah, so operational security is it's a pretty broad topic. Operational security could be that if you walk down this street that there's some bad gang. So you don't walk down that street, right? Operational security might be you think that you have a hacker neighbor who's listening to your transactions and may try to steal some private keys. So you use a VPN. It could mean an extraordinary amount of things. It's identifying who your adversaries are and then changing your operations so that you can avoid them.
Now, do you have a military background, Nathan?
I don't.
Okay, because that's a pretty common word, like in the military sphere. Because, one of those things that I do, if there is I always Google every phrase while we talk because I understand a lot of things, right? But the way I work is I always want to make sure I have the most updated terminology and understand exactly what I'm talking about. So even say for instance, the phrase FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Before talking about FOMO, I will Google FOMO and pull up the word or the phrase. And that way I don't fall into that error of, I'm pretty sure I know what this means, so I'm going to talk on it.
Right.
So I'm sure that you got the term OPSEC. Where did you come across that word initially, the phrasing of OPSEC? Because,
it's just shortened terminology. So there's MedSec for medical security. There's, we use BCAS for blockchain open security. But it's just in the security industry, it just makes conversation move quicker. Just
right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, man. Because here's the thing. I'm sure I bring in a lot of people on here, and it's really nice when there's a specialist of something. A specialist, you're a security. I don't know if you want me to call you a security specialist per se, right? But
no, yeah.
But you're focused. You're focused on something. This is where you shine. This is like your expertise, so to speak, right? This is where you're really educated.
No, I use security and I use blockchain and cryptocurrency to expand freedom. That is at the core of everything I think about and do. So that's my primary thing is I just want to eradicate force and coercion and all the bad things. And right now we're doing that, with privacy tools. We're doing it with cryptocurrencies that have, completely open and understandable economic models. So that's it. I wouldn't call myself a security specialist. I would call myself a freedom specialist.
Gotcha. Well, what I'm saying is it's nice to have someone who specializes in something.
Thank you very much, God.
You can call me Crowley.
All right. How would be your name? How would be thy name, Crowley?
Yes. So, I have a Patreon server for my channel, but I've created a server for my individual fan base for people who don't want to pay money but still want to support and be part of the stuff that I'm doing. And we set up, this is really funny. Because there's this ongoing joke that's been going on is that my voice is the voice of God. There's a lot of people that have said it, both before Crypto God and now with Crypto God. So the announcement board that I put announcements on for stuff for them to pay attention to is underneath the voice of God. So this is really funny for me, just because it's internet personas are so outlandish, Nathan. And it's this whole thing, it's just I'm having a morning essentially, Nathan, where I'm just I'm very amused by everything in my life.
Good. I'm happy to hear that, man.
It's been, my work day for the most part is really just getting started. And there's been a lot of interesting things in the work already. And, this whole thing of And I'm sure you have days that are more productive than others. And I'm excited because this is the first interview we've had to have on this channel to talk about, the security of all of it, how it gets secure. So here's a question for you, right? I get asked this question probably more than anything else from the people who know what I do. How do you pick safe projects? How do you determine the scams from not the scams? That is the question I get more than anything else. And if there was any insight you could provide on that, because that's a big thing. And I think that would be should be the pin in the cap.
It's funny. Going back to Consensus, New York Blockchain Week 2017, I was outside and I used to smoke cigarettes at the time. And I was outside smoking a cigarette. And this older guy came up to me and he asked me the same question. How do you know which ones are scams? How do you know which ones are good projects? And I was like, wait, you don't know anything about crypto? He was like, no. And it was a $3,000 conference. And I was like, dude, go the and just start going to your local meetups. I was like, don't come here. You just threw $3,000 away. At the time, it was about a third of a Bitcoin. Wow. So that's why I told him. But then I gave him an example. So I'm outside smoking a cigarette, and so are a lot of people in their little bag tuxedo, the jeans with the blazer and their little graphic tee for whatever their stupid project is.
Douchebag tuxedo. Thank you. I'm going to use that terminology now. I love it. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for making it a thing.
Right. Yeah, so I yelled at, and I'm like, hey, raise your hand if you have a working relationship with a third-party security consultancy. And not a single hand went up. And I was like, see that? They're all scams. I was like, every single one of them, because they're not adhering to any type of due diligence. And if they can't be trusted to do that, then there's no reason to believe that your funds are secure with the project.
Wow. Way to make friends, Nathan.
I'm not good at that.
No, I think you are good at making friends because you make the right ones.
Well, no, it stinks because I know, I'm very aware. My job is to go around and naysay and it's all doom and gloom. And I get that. That's what happens. That's the way that you start to look at every project. And then when something is beautiful, it's really beautiful. And so I do have projects that I really, really like. I just don't talk about them because everybody can pick their own stuff is why.
Right.
But naturally, I prefer the ZK snarks to ring signatures. That's a personal preference of mine. And it's a huge debate and people fight about it left and right. I don't care. I made my personal choice. But I typically don't talk about which ZK projects I like. It's not my job to influence the way that people think.
No, you say ZK projects, right?
Zero knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, now, so they're
break down that for me for a second, because now I have questions because I know that the people at home have questions because I have questions. Break it down.
All right, yeah, I'll keep it pretty lightweight. Okay. So Bitcoin is a public ledger, and there's tools like Chainalysis and Chain.ai and stuff like that are very, very good at de-anonymizing the great majority of the Bitcoin blockchain because it's a public ledger. So, when you're hooking your bank account up to a wallet through an exchange, then it says, okay, well, these are Nathan Hauk's Bitcoins or they're that person's Bitcoins. And this is how the entire thing gets, okay, well, it got sent to this address. Who's that address connected to and who did it send to? And this is how they figure out who everybody's expenditures are. So zero knowledge was everybody had this question of, okay, well, how do we do it anonymously? Because the difficult part is how can you prove something happened with not a single person being able to confirm it happened, but maintain the integrity of the blockchain? So there was a professor, Matt Green over at Hopkins, and him and his grad students, they worked on it. And they discovered a very, very unique way using a lot of heavyweight cryptography to do this. And they're called ZKs, which is short for ZK snark, which is like zero knowledge, succinct, non-argumentative, recursive, something or other. I can't recall off the top of my head right now. But so this was absolutely groundbreaking. And so a lot of projects started to use these ZK snarks to take their existing project and then make it very, very private, but it maintains the integrity and you can trust it. And DARPA is now trying to use the ZK snarks as a vehicle for security researchers to demonstrate exploits and vulnerabilities to clients without having to risk getting sued or anything like that. There's a very poor relationships between software vendors and security research. So DARPA wants to. So this is this really cool thing where it was developed to protect people from the watchful eyes of a prying government, and then the government goes, "Oh, well, we can use this too to protect security researchers, hackers from companies." So,
Fascinating. Now,
yeah, it's really, really wild.
I did that thing where I Google the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the name specifically, I have it pulled up here, it is Zero Knowledge Succinct Non-Interactive Argument of Knowledge.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
so break. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, I have a cool way of explaining it, but I have to draw, so that won't work for audio only.
Well, I mean, so like, here's an example, right? Of like, you have your inputs, then you have your output, then there's like 2 points that the 3 inputs go into. Those 2 points of input goes into another, and then it finally filters out to the output, which is A plus B in parentheses times B plus C, or divided by C. It's a whole thing, bro.
Yes, it is.
It's a whole thing.
A team of doctorate students from the Hopkins Department of Cryptography. It's gonna be a whole thing.
Yeah, it's Stanford, bro. There's a whole thing in Stanford that's focused on it too.
Stanford's doing it. Yeah, I know Berkeley has a school of blockchain.
I know that Stanford, it's science and global security with Stanford. It's Princeton University's program on science and global security. It's Princeton, not Stanford. I stand corrected. It's really fascinating. It's this whole world. Like, we got to have you back on so we can just discuss more of this, because I know like this is a lot for people's brain at this point.
Yeah.
Because, it's a lot for my brain, Nathan.
Yeah, it's an entire industry. It's very all encompassing. It's just huge.
Well, I enjoy cryptography in general. Like, I know that some authors hide stuff in their books from time to time, and I've made a habit of trying to decipher it.
Mm-hmm.
I got like a 99% fail rate, but
it's all right.
Without the key, you can't do much.
That's why the answers are in the back of the book.
Right. It's so fascinating, man. And I really appreciate your time. This has been really, really good.
Great, man. Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, folks, you got to like, comment, subscribe, and share with all of your friends, because this is important information. We got to make sure things are secure. We got to make sure to protect freedom. Now, you got to ring the bell so you can get all the information that you need about just everything underneath the space. I am excited about branching into the whole conversation about security and privacy and all of that. We got some cool stuff lined up down the road, folks. You're not going to fucking miss it. Now, with that being said, the last thing when you do some vetting, you do some research, and you understand that something is safe and secure and you invest in it, is you got to hodl that shit.